I can't believe this. The sutures are completely alien. We need to secure this site immediately.
Venus of Parsenta. In December 2022, a Polish farmer near Kołobrzeg dug up a 12-centimeter figurine of a woman with accentuated hips and a narrow waist from a field. 3 years of lab work and the dating is ready. About 6,000 years old, the early Neolithic era. An electron microscope scan showed traces of a flint cutter, and the clay spectrum matched the floodplain of the Parsenta River, meaning the figurine was made by local farmers and not brought in by traders. Why it's important? Northern Poland has long been considered the periphery of the Venus culture. Classical, Paleolithic, and Neolithic goddesses were found in southern Europe. Now the Baltic gets its own Mother Earth and moves the border of the fertile cult zone hundreds of kilometers to the north. Martian meteorites. Hello from space. Seriously, these rocks came to us straight from Mars. It sounds unbelievable, but it's a scientific fact. How did pieces of the red planet end up on Earth? It all started with a giant impact. Either an asteroid or a comet collided with Mars, throwing fragments of rock into space. Due to the planet's weak gravity, 2.5 times less than Earth's, the debris escaped Mars and went on an interplanetary journey. Some took millions of years to reach Earth. One of the largest meteorites is Tau Denis 002, found in Mali in 2021. Its weight is 14.5 kilograms. And the most famous is the Allen Hills meteorite, discovered in Antarctica. It arrived 13,000 years ago, and inside it, scientists found possible traces of Martian life. Oldest hairstyle. This is an amazing find, a preserved hairstyle from an ancient Egyptian man dating back approximately 3,300 years. The intricate braids are striking in their complexity and excellent state of preservation. In ancient Egypt, hairstyles were of great importance and were often used to express status, age, and position in society. Hair care included the use of oils and fragrances, which also contributed to its longevity. Surviving details like these braids allow scientists to better understand how important appearance was to the ancient Egyptians and the skill required to create such hairstyles. The secret to survival in an icy hell. We tend to think of ancient humans as primitive, but 12,000 years ago in Oregon caves, they solved problems that today only engineers can handle. Archaeologists have discovered fragments of moose skin clothing there. This is the oldest special clothing in history, and its presence is the main reason our species survived at all. 45,000 years ago, modern humans became the only ones to dare to live permanently above the 45th parallel. This is a zone of extreme cold where biodiversity is non-existent. In such conditions, clothing is not an accessory but a survival technique. Scientists have proven that in an icy climate, complex, form-fitting clothing is more important than food. Without calories, you can survive for weeks, but you die from the cold in hours. The choice of material in Oregon was ideal. Small game was used for traps, but moose skin was used exclusively for clothing. Its skin is thicker and has phenomenal thermal insulation. Researchers found not only scraps of fur in the caves, but also fragments of rope, complex triggers for catching rabbits, and tools made of various types of wood. It was a veritable industry. People didn't just survive, they created systems that allowed them to dominate where other species perished. But while some were battling the cold, others in France were revolutionizing art. A 32,000-year-old depiction of a bear was discovered in the Chauvet Cave. It's striking in its technique. The artist used just 14 lines. This is pure minimalism. To give the animal volume, the artist used shading smearing pigment with his fingers or a piece of skin. Just a few strokes and we have before us a living predator with character and power. These two finds, the leather fragments and the Chauvet drawing, reveal two facets of our past. On the one hand, there's the rigorous calculation and high-tech tailoring that allowed us to conquer the North. On the other hand, it is the birth of the human spirit, when a hunter between battles for life found time to create a world-class masterpiece. The Galloway Horde and another exciting discovery. A rare rock crystal jar found wrapped in cloth as part of the Galloway Horde, which dates from around 900, has been preserved and has a Latin inscription written in gold. The inscription says that the jug was made for a bishop named Hygelac. The Galloway Horde is the richest collection of rare and unique Viking Age items ever found in the British Isles. It was discovered in 2014 and acquired by the National Museums of Scotland in 2017. The hoard includes more than 100 items such as brooches, ingots, glass beads, a Christian cross, and a silver vessel. Even some of the fabrics with which the materials were originally wrapped have been preserved. It is believed that a crystal jug about 5 centimeters high, resembling a richly decorated perfume bottle, served a church function. Now it has been carefully separated from the packaging. The Latin inscription on the base, written in gold letters, translates as "Bishop Hegel ordered me to make me." The inscription is in Latin, which in those days was the universal language of the Western Church. From the records of that period, we know that there were several clerics named Hegwald in early medieval Northumbria. Some studies of the artifact included a 3D X-ray image. The scan was done in collaboration with the British Museum, allowing the packaged object to be examined without damaging it. Rock crystal is unusual in itself. It is one of those materials that were highly valued in the ancient world for its transparency and translucency, which is why it is associated with purity. The gold almost immortalizes it. It has become a kind of relic. Metal door inside the rock. Since the beginning of the 21st century, numerous stories and rumors have surrounded the construction of the Baikal-Amur mainline in Russia, some of which surprisingly have a basis in reality. During active work on this railway line, workers encountered anomalies and paranormal phenomena, causing many to call the line ghost. Among the stories, a special place is occupied by stories about the ghost of the railway, a train passing by without a sound, which was witnessed by both builders and local residents. Scientists believe the origins of these stories may be linked to events in the 1940s when prisoners hijacked a steam locomotive during an uprising in an escape attempt. The Bayam tunnels were not spared from mysteries, in particular the Severomoysky Tunnel, the construction of which took more than 25 years due to unexpected surprises that posed new challenges for the builders. The mysteries associated with these structures, including stories of a white shaman who foreshadows disasters, only enhance the aura of mysticism around the highway. At every step, builders faced new obstacles that required immediate solutions. One of the most intriguing moments was the discovery of a metal door in one of the sections of the tunnel after the breakthrough of an underground spring, which led to the death of 30 people. The door, which became a real mystery, remained an unsolved secret, as did the strange sounds coming from underground, reminiscent of knocking. Attempts to explain these phenomena range from speculation about high concentrations of radon gas, which can cause audio hallucinations, to stories of evil spirits living in the depths of the tunnel. Additional intrigue is brought by the Devil's Bridge, part of the same highway, famous for its secrets and myths. Despite all the technical and mystical difficulties, the Severomoysky Tunnel and the Devil's Bridge remain the most important structures of the Bayam, and the stories associated with them continue to excite the minds of both specialists and travelers. Answers to many questions have not yet been found, and each new riddle only deepens the mystery of these places. Lomekwi Stone Tools. It is truly exciting and very touching to be the first to pick up a stone artifact since its original creator laid it on the ground millions of years ago. Who this original creator is remains unknown. Lomekwi tools were created for forging and cutting long before the genus Homo was born, and this is about 2.8 million years ago. Traditional history and human evolution studies suggest that the origin of stone tools by our ancestors was associated with the emergence of the genus Homo, and that this technological development was associated with climate change and the spread of savannas. The discovery by the West Turkana Archaeological Project team of tools, 500,000 years older than the earliest known Homo fossils, suggests that it is possible that other earlier hominids learned to make tools, or that some as yet unknown members of the Homo genus arose much earlier than we thought. The largest meteorite on Earth. The mysteries of space have always excited minds, and meteorites serve as evidence of mysterious visits from deep space to Earth. An example of such an incredible visitor is the Goba meteorite, discovered in Namibia, which to this day inspires admiration for its size and history. Unlike the Tunguska meteorite, which left many questions and assumptions, Goba is tangible evidence of space travel to our planet. Weighing 60 tons, this gigantic piece of metal, decorated with ancient rust, today flaunts the amphitheater built especially for it and is one of Namibia's main attractions. The history of the discovery of the meteorite began in 1918 when farmer Jacobus Brits, plowing the ground, came across an unusual block. First trying to uproot it and then carefully examining it, Brits discovered that in front of him was an iron meteorite, the composition of which was later determined to be 81% iron and 17% nickel. This find became a sensation because at that time little was known about meteorites and the farmer dreamed of a big jackpot. The issues of transporting the huge space guest turned out to be so complicated that the sale had to be forgotten. Since then, the Goba meteorite, whose weight has been reduced to 63 tons over time due to chemical erosion and vandalism, has been protected and recognized as a national monument. Today, Goba not only surprises with its size, but is also a living lesson in history and astronomy, reminding us of how small and at the same time important we are in this vast universe. And although tourists continue to leave their marks on it, every scratch is quickly hidden under a layer of rust, as if nature itself is erasing the boundaries between the earthly and the cosmic. Delivery of messages from the afterlife. Since ancient times, humanity has sought to find a way to communicate with the living who have departed from the world, which has led to the development of many methods and practices. Among them, charlatans inevitably arose, exploiting the grief of those who had lost loved ones. However, along with this, there were those who approached the issue of communication with the other world with pragmatism and rationalism. One such person was William Thomas Stead, a Victorian journalist who delved into spiritualism in London in the 1890s. Stead claimed to have psychic abilities and could receive messages from the dead through so-called automatic writing. Allegedly, his hand is capable of writing a message from the other world. One of his main interlocutors was Julia Ames, an American journalist who died in 1891. Before her death, Julia agreed with her friend Ellen that she would try to contact her from the afterlife. Ellen claimed that she saw Julia at home next to her bed but did not hear her words. This caused Ellen to turn to Stead for help, and he offered to use his skills to convey her messages through automatic writing. As a result, Stead wrote the book After Death, or Letters from Julia, in which he published messages allegedly received from Julia. They described her experiences in the afterlife and gave the idea that the continuation of existence after death is perceived as something natural and continuous, where the soul leaves the physical body but retains its consciousness and self-awareness. After Stead's death on the Titanic in 1912, his daughter Estella claimed that a family friend, Woodman, also began receiving messages from her father via automatic letter. Woodman allegedly conveyed Stead's impressions of his post-death experiences, describing his experience of death as a strange journey to a new place filled with light and peace. These reports suggest that automatic writing may not only be the product of trance or unconscious activity, but also a real way of communicating with another dimension. 6 kilograms of pure gold. The history of this treasure began in a small urban-type settlement of Panagurshti. As it usually happens, the treasure was found by chance when they were busy with completely different things. The Daykov brothers had a small firm in which bricks were made and clay was harvested for their manufacture. One of the brothers accidentally ran into something metal with a shovel. Since there could not be any metal there, he began to carefully pull the object out of the ground. At first, he did not understand that the item was made of gold. It was shaped like a horn. After cleaning it from the ground, he realized that it was a metal horn. By the characteristic brilliance of the precious metal, he realized that the find was valuable. He ran after his brothers to show them his find. When they washed and cleaned the object, they realized that it was a very expensive thing that was of value to archaeologists. One of the brothers offered to go back and dig some more. They did just that. Almost immediately, they pulled out another item and then another. The brothers found 9 unique artifacts of amazing beauty. According to historical data, Thracian tribes lived on these lands. Among historians, there are still disputes about who created these unique items. It is believed that they were created by ancient Greek jewelers, and with the help of trade, they came to these lands. Approximate age of manufacture 4th to 3rd century BC. The products depict the life of Greek gods and mythological characters. The brothers handed over all the found values to archaeologists. Now this treasure is kept in the National History Museum in Sofia. The earliest use of fire for cooking. For the first time, a person learned to make fire about 400,000 years ago. At least it was thought so before. Archaeologists from the Steinhardt Museum of Natural History at Tel Aviv University have made a sensational discovery. They claim to have found evidence of how our ancestors cooked food over a fire some 780,000 years ago. The ability to cook food is actually a big breakthrough in the evolution of our ancestors. After the humanoid beings learned how to heat food, they received an impetus for the development of the brain. It used to take them much longer to chew and digest food. After heat treatment of food, the meat became softer and absorbed by the body much faster, which allowed more time to be spent on building settlements and exploring new territories. They had a large amount of free time that needed to be occupied with something. At this moment, the brain turned on and began to actively invent how to entertain themselves. You might be wondering how archaeologists managed to figure out that the earliest cooking over a campfire was 780,000 years ago. What could they have found that led to such a conclusion? At the archaeological site of Gesher Beno Yaakov in Israel, they found the burnt teeth of a large fish. After analyzing the tooth enamel, they were able to find out that the fish was gradually subjected to heat treatment. Most likely, it could be baked or boiled. Burnt stones were found nearby, indicating that there was a hearth here. It is so interesting to imagine that almost 1 million years ago, our ancestors cooked fish for themselves on stones or in an earth kiln in the same way that we do it now on a grill or barbecue. Holy water from an air conditioner. A funny incident occurred in the Indian temple of Sri Banke Bihari in Vrindavan, which could have happened anywhere, but it is especially striking in a country with hundreds of gods and temples for every occasion. Devotees crowded around a statue of an elephant from which water was dripping. They decided that this was holy water from the feet of Krishna. However, in reality, the water was simply condensation dripping from the air conditioner cooling the temple. For people who had never encountered air conditioners, this explanation was insufficient. Devotees continued to claim that this was the same nectar from the lotus feet of Krishna that the temple servants collect every morning when washing the divine feet. The temple even had to issue an official statement to dispel the myth and warn people against drinking this water. The danger of such water is that fungi and bacteria can form in the air conditioning system, which easily get into the drops. This could lead to infections. But it is worth noting that Indian stomachs are accustomed to unfavorable conditions. Otherwise, they would not be able to buy food at street markets. When this incident was reported on television, believers even took offense at the temple management for not warning them earlier. But how can you convince someone who already believes? It is an almost impossible task. Ritual rice. In the northern Retidian cave, archaeologists found imprints of rice husks on pottery that are at least 3,500 years old. The only traces are a thin film of starch and phytoliths, but this is enough to confirm that the settlers reached Guam, carrying rice across 2,300 kilometers of open ocean. No fields, terraces, or sickles were ever found, meaning the grains were saved not for lunch but for ritual. Perhaps once a year to remind the spirits of their ancestors of their distant home in Taiwan. In the hands of the islanders, rice turned from an everyday food into a symbol of origin, and that is why tiny marks on the dishes turned out to be more important than a whole cemetery of bone harpoons. Search for the divine machine. After Isaac Newton's death, it turned out that he was also fascinated by alchemy. This discovery shocked the scientific community because alchemy was perceived as a mystical delusion far from rational knowledge. In 1936, economist John Maynard Keynes bought a chest of Newton's unpublished manuscripts at auction. Instead of scientific treatises, there were his notes on esoteric theology and alchemy. Newton believed that the universe was an encrypted message from God and was looking for the key to unraveling the divine plan. He studied the works of the Rosicrucians, a secret society of the 16th century engaged in the search for the Philosopher's Stone and the elixir of immortality. His library contained 169 books on alchemy, including translations of classic occult treatises. Although today alchemy is perceived as pseudoscience, for Newton it was part of the great search for truth. He saw no boundaries between science, philosophy, and mysticism, believing that everything was interconnected. Perhaps it was this broad view that allowed him to make his revolutionary discoveries. Egyptian alabaster disc. Our list of unusual artifacts opens with an artifact which is now in the Netherlands Archaeological Museum and is an alabaster disc weighing 75 kilograms. Scientists have known about this artifact for more than 200 years, but during all this time they have not decided exactly what it was previously used for. The only thing scientists are sure of is that the artifact definitely belongs to the ancient Egyptian culture. And as Egyptologists suggest, its main purpose is a ritual accessory during burial and turning to the gods. Well, where do they mostly write off incomprehensible things? Of course, religion and rituals. Coin with the image of the goddess of the moon. At the bottom of the sea off the coast during underwater work, Israeli archaeologists found a coin, which is about 1,850 years old. A bronze coin in very good condition was found at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea near the beach near Haifa. It depicts the goddess Moon. She personifies the planet's satellite of the same name, as well as the zodiac sign, Cancer. The artifact probably belongs to a series of 13 coins, 12 of which correspond to the signs of the zodiac, the latter with a full zodiac wheel. Scientists believe that the coinage was in Egyptian Alexandria, and on the found coin there is an inscription, the 8th year. This corresponds to the reign of Emperor Antoninus Pius, who led the Roman Empire from 138 to 161 AD. Such finds, which have lain at the bottom for hundreds of years, speak of close ties between ports in ancient times. Stone sarcophagus. In Italy, archaeologists have discovered an intact 2,500-year-old sarcophagus that lay hidden underground near the volcanic Lake Bolsena. During excavations of the ancient Etruscan settlement of Bisenzio on the shores of the lake, several graves dating back to between 700 and 500 BC were found. To the surprise of scientists, none of the burials had suffered from looting, which is rare for such an ancient site. Of particular interest was a simple stone sarcophagus that preserved its contents in their original form. Using an excavator, archaeologists lifted the heavy lid and found an almost completely preserved skeleton inside. Next to the remains was a small clay vessel, which, according to experts, could symbolize personal belongings or offerings to the deceased. The find is unique and gives researchers a rare opportunity to study the remains of an ancient Etruscan. Scientists hope that further analysis of the skeleton will provide valuable information about the life and culture of this people. Daniel Sickles' limb and its adventures. One of the most famous exhibits at the National Museum of Health and Medicine in Washington is the fragments of General Daniel Sickles' leg, a participant in the American Civil War. This exhibit attracts the attention of not only visitors, but also Sickles himself, who repeatedly came to the museum to see his loss and impress his friends, including Mark Twain. Daniel Sickles, a controversial and scandalous figure, was born in New York and made a successful career in law and politics. His life was full of high-profile events, including his marriage to Teresa Baggioli, who was half his age. Sickles did not hide his affairs, once even bringing a prostitute to a meeting of the state assembly. In a dramatic twist, his wife cheated on him with District Attorney Philip Barton Key. Upon learning of the affair, Sickles shot Key right in front of the White House. The trial was a sensation. Sickles defended himself with temporary insanity, the first time this was used as a defense, and successfully. In 1863, as a major general, Sickles fought in the Battle of Gettysburg, where he moved his corps forward against orders. This decision resulted in heavy losses, and he himself lost a leg due to a cannonball. The amputated limb was transferred to the museum in a special box and became one of the central exhibits. Sickles not only did not leave his career, but also returned to politics. He lived a long life and died at the age of 94 in 1914. His leg is still on display in the museum, a reminder of his bright and eventful life. Treasures of the Allans. The southern outskirts of the Chechen village of Alcancala have long been listed in the Archaeological Register, but excavations in 2025 sharply increased interest. At the bottom of a narrow, carefully stone-lined tomb, a pendant sparkled. A thin gold ring with 5-faceted almandine inserts. A glass bowl the color of a melting glacier lay slightly to the right. The chemical composition confirmed its Byzantine or Persian origin. Bronze cheek pieces were found among the horse bones, and along the warrior's legs, a scabbard with stylized griffins, typical of Sassanid art. The burial dates back to the end of the 9th century, a time when Alania controlled the passes between the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea. The richness of the inventory suggests that before us is a person from the top of society, possibly a representative of the rulers of Dariel, but the jeweler's technique indicates that the pendant was made locally. The gold contains a characteristic admixture of platinum from Caspian placers, and the grain sits on a glue composition known from Khazar finds. Taken together, the tomb destroys the old image of nomad intermediaries. Elenian society at the end of the first millennium looked more complex. Its own jewelers, long-distance glass trade, close ties with Iran and Byzantium, and most importantly, the desire to perpetuate status in gold and horse harness. The leaden death of the Roman Empire. There's a beautiful and terrifying theory. The Roman Empire collapsed because the Romans literally drank themselves to death. Supposedly, lead from water pipes caused infertility, feeble-mindedness, and paralysis among the entire elite. Looking at the antics of Caligula or Nero, it's easy to believe, but in 2025, scientists definitively proved that lead had nothing to do with it. The idea of mass poisoning was actively promoted in the 1980s. It was claimed that lead accumulated in the bodies of aristocrats, causing degeneration, but the reality turned out to be much more practical. Firstly, the water in Rome was very hard, with a high calcium content. The pipes instantly became coated with a thick layer of limescale. This limescale acted as a perfect insulator, physically preventing lead from entering the water. As early as the 1st century BC, the Roman architect Vitruvius recommended using clay pipes instead of lead ones, not out of fear of death, but simply because it was cheaper. Secondly, running water was a luxury. 90% of Rome's population got their water from public fountains and cisterns where there was no trace of lead. If pipes were killing people, the elite, not the empire as a whole, would have been the first to perish. But Rome's elite did indeed suffer lead poisoning. Only the source was elsewhere, in wine cups. The Romans adored sweet syrups, sapa and defrutum. They were brewed from grape juice strictly in lead cauldrons. Lead imparted sweetness to the drink and acted as a preservative. This poisonous syrup was added to everything: food, sauces, and wine. It was a veritable lead bomb. Modern studies of Arctic ice cores have confirmed that during the Roman era, atmospheric lead levels were tens of times higher than normal due to silver mining. But even these concentrations only minimally increased lead levels in children's blood. This could lower IQ by 2 to 3 points, which is unpleasant, but certainly not fatal for a state. The Roman Empire perished because of the collapse of the economy and the disintegration of the army, not because of pipes. Lead was merely background noise in the grand finale of a great power.
Janus in gold. Under the ground of Krakow's Wawel Castle, archaeologists discovered an amazing artifact, a gold ring from the 11th to 12th centuries with a two-faced design, unique in Polish history. Unlike typical Christian symbols of the era, the decor of the double-faced ring may indicate a connection with Janus, the Roman god of beginnings and transitions, who has no analogues in Greek mythology. This rare find demonstrates the high level of craftsmanship of its creators. The ring, which has a thickness of 1.5 millimeters, a diameter of 4 millimeters, and a circumference of 57 millimeters, is distinguished by its intricate decoration. This makes it exceptional among other early medieval jewelry found in Poland, which was usually either unadorned or had simple geometric designs. Researcher Jerzy Trzebinski emphasizes the uniqueness of the ring, suggesting that it could have been made by local craftsmen and may have belonged to the upper echelon of society during the Piast dynasty. The ring was found in the basement of the Danish Tower, built by order of Vladislav II Jagiello during the era of reconstruction of the castle.
Civilization that did not know war. During aerial photography of the northern central Peruvian coast, scientists saw mounds that stood out among the sands and had regular shapes. Wasting no time, they decided to explore this area, and not in vain as it turned out. During excavations, they discovered the ruins of an ancient city in which a civilization unknown to science lived at that time. During further research, scientists found out that this is the city of Caral, more than 3,500 years old. We also managed to find out that the civilization that lived in this city called itself Norte Chico, and as it turned out a little later, it belonged to the late Archaic period and was before the ceramic culture. In general, it was a unique civilization because according to the concepts of scientists, if a civilization does not have ceramics, then it means that this civilization could not build cities. But the people of Norte Chico, as it turned out, did very well without ceramics. Everything they needed was made from natural materials, such as spoons made of wood, plates made from gourds, and large dishes made from stones. Houses were built from processed stone.
The writing of the Karali people was unusual. These are not hieroglyphs and symbols familiar to us, but knotted letters. Quipu. They wrote down all their knowledge in the hope that one day their descendants would be able to read it. But alas, this civilization disappeared a long time ago, and with it those who could read knot letters disappeared, not having had time to pass on their skills in reading this letter to their descendants. The Karali people used irrigation canals to grow their crops. And due to the fact that they were filled with the meltwaters of the Andes, this allowed them to grow crops without problems even during a dry climate. They grew mainly beans, potatoes, corn, and even cotton. And the fact that this civilization turned out to be the most peaceful of all ever discovered is evidenced by the fact that during the excavations, archaeologists could not find a single weapon, even a hint. But scientists are most interested in where exactly the Karali came from and why they disappeared without a trace. They hope to find answers as they explore the city further. The world's first trash can. Archaeological excavations in the area known as Britain's Pompeii have revealed surprising facts about ancient waste disposal methods. The discovery, made at Must Farm near Peterborough, turned out to be an ancient equivalent of a rubbish bin, which is up to 3,000 years old. This object, made from 2 pieces of wood, contained broken metal objects ready to be melted down. This demonstrates a progressive approach to recycling among Bronze Age communities. The study allowed us to delve deeper into the lives of people who lived in 850 BC. The discovery of the remains of 10 roundhouses, destroyed by fire and preserved in the mud, has provided unique insights into the life of a community of 50-60 people. The discovery of a bin used to collect scrap metal has upended ideas about the primitiveness of the time, highlighting the sophistication and practicality of ancient people in the field of waste disposal. Must Farm is a veritable time capsule that preserves not only unique artifacts, but also an entire Bronze Age settlement, including Britain's only round tent settlement and a collection of glass beads that has no analogs in the country. Treasure of spices on a sunken ship. Despite the terrible tragedies and terrible events of the past, archaeologists can now study the ancient world. Off the coast of Sweden, archaeologists have found the ship Gribshunden, which sank here in 1495. The Danish king Johan planned to make a deal with the Swedish ruler Sten Sture the Elder that would give him complete control over Sweden, as he had previously done with Norway, creating a unified Scandinavian kingdom. However, after landing, the ship caught fire and sank, which was a great loss. It was filled with goods worthy of a rich and powerful ruler. For the first time, the wreckage of the ship was discovered in the 1960s, but then archaeologists were not able to study in detail all the artifacts found deep underwater. The first serious research began in 2019, and the most valuable find were containers with well-preserved plant material, containing about 3,000 samples. Scientists were able to identify medieval spices among them: nutmeg, cloves, mustard, dill, saffron, ginger, peppercorns, and almonds. In that era, spices from Southeast Asia were extremely expensive in Europe since the Ottoman Empire blocked the way to them. Also on board were less exotic foods such as dried blackberries, raspberries, grapes, and flax. In addition to them, henbane was found, which in the past was used for medicinal purposes, and now it is one of the most poisonous plants in nature. The plant samples were in excellent condition due to the unique conditions at the location where the ship was found, a cold and low salinity part of the Baltic Sea. From precious spices, I will move on to a treasure in a more familiar sense for us. Gravity by Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was a brilliant artist, inventor, and scientist of the Renaissance, but it turns out that his mind was even more insightful than previously thought. A recent study has shown that he anticipated the basic principles of gravity long before Isaac Newton. In his notes found in the Arundel Codex, Da Vinci drew a diagram of an experiment. A jug moves in a straight line and grains of sand pouring out of it fall down. He analyzed their trajectory and realized that the fall is subject to acceleration. This means that Leonardo realized that gravity is a force that makes objects accelerate. But he went further. In his notes, he used geometric shapes to describe the patterns of motion. He noticed that if the jug moves with the same acceleration as the falling particles, a perfect isosceles triangle is formed. This was the first step towards calculating the gravitational constant. Although his mathematical calculations were inaccurate, the error was only 3%. Da Vinci did not have time to complete his ideas, but if his discoveries had been noticed earlier, perhaps the science of gravity would have developed faster. 500 years later, we realize how far ahead of his time he was. The mystery of the plush swan. Archaeologists believe that a felt figurine of a swan created in the Iron Age symbolized life. This artifact, known as the Pazyryk swan, was made of reindeer felt and stuffed with reindeer hair. The figurine belongs to the Pazyryk culture, associated with the nomadic peoples of the Saka group, which was considered the eastern branch of the Scythians. The swan is estimated to be 2,400 years old. It was found in the Pazyryk Valley in the Altai Mountains near the borders of Russia, Kazakhstan, China, and Mongolia. The figurine is about 30 centimeters tall. The swan's body was made of white felt, the eyes and wingtips were made of black felt, and the legs were made of a reddish-brown material. To make the swan stand upright, wooden sticks were inserted into its legs. It is believed that the figurine could have been mounted on a chariot or a tent-like structure that collapsed over time. The swan probably symbolized life in three spheres: air, earth, and water. Researchers note that images of waterfowl, such as swans and ducks, are often found in creation myths among ancient peoples. Excavations in Pazyryk began in the 1920s, but the swan figurine was found only in 1949. The unique preservation of this and other organic objects is explained by the peculiarities of the local climate. Many burial mounds are located in the permafrost zone, which allows artifacts to remain virtually untouched for centuries. Egyptian towers. When you hear the words ancient Egyptian houses, most people picture squat mud brick huts. Excavations in Emet, northern Delta, change the picture radically. Archaeologists have uncovered a late-period block, a whole street of tower houses, 4 to 5 stories high, a solid wall along the processional road to the Wadjet Temple. The height is estimated at 12 to 15 meters, which for the 7th century BC is the equivalent of a modern 5-story block. The lower levels are filled with grain silos and beer vats. Higher up are living rooms with narrow chimneys, and even higher are covered terraces where date pits and bronze sistrums of the goddess Hathor have been preserved. In the evening, they didn't just dine here, but held rituals with music. 5 steps from the doors, a limestone promenade stretches to the Wadjet Temple. The slabs are polished so that even today they reflect the setting sun, and the cult columns stand exactly where the masters of the 7th century BC placed them. It turns out to be a real mini-Memphis in the provinces. Dense, high-rise buildings, a market, a temple, and a sacred road in one cramped block. 3 layers of repair in the masonry show that the towers lived for at least a century and a half, and reliefs with Harpocrates and green faience ushabtis are still visible on the facades, a sign that religion and everyday life here literally shared one wall. It destroys the old stereotype of a one-story Egypt. Matriarchal Çatalhöyük looked like a chaotic hive of clay houses, but DNA analysis of 131 skeletons put everything in its place. Under the floors of neighboring houses, relatives were buried strictly along the maternal line: grandmother, mother, daughter, 1 burial or 2 neighboring rooms. Men were located without a clear pattern. It turns out that the center of social organization of this Neolithic city is women, and blood is transmitted along the female vertical. The gifts are especially eloquent. Tiny shell beads, lapis lazuli from the mountains of Afghanistan, miniature figurines of the mother goddess. All this is placed not for adults, but for baby girls. Funeral riches seem to advance the future role of the mistress of the house, while boys get a minimum of jewelry. Even the layout of the blocks hints at a female axis. The houses are grouped in clusters of 3 around fireplaces, where the walls are painted with hunting scenes, but the central place is occupied by female silhouettes with accentuated hips, a symbol of abundance. Çatalhöyük was often called egalitarian. They say that everyone has the same dwellings, which means equality. Genetics shows a nuance. Yes, there are almost no property classes, but the real power is family ties, and the maternal clan controls them.
The oldest animal sculpture. On the coast of South Africa, 330 kilometers from Cape Town, scientists from Nelson Mandela University discovered the oldest artificial image of an animal created by man. This sculpture of a blue stingray, made from petrified sand, is located near Blombos Cave, famous for rock art dating back to 77,000 and 73,000 years ago. The study showed that the sculpture was created about 130,000 years ago during the Middle Paleolithic period.
The special symmetry and engraved patterns indicate that this is the work of man and not a random creation of nature. This find makes it possible to trace the development of art among the ancient ancestors of man, showing the transition from the creation of abstract forms to realistic images of animals. A couple from the United States with a strange story. In 1875, in downtown Philadelphia, in an old cemetery, workers discovered the mummified bodies of a man and a woman believed to have died in 1792, although this information was later refuted. No records of the Ellenbogen family or other documents confirming their existence have been found. The bodies went through a process of saponification, becoming soap mummies due to the specific burial conditions, where the fat was converted into a soap mass, slowing decomposition. The man, who was more saponified than the woman, and the woman with vestiges of blonde hair on her head, presumably died at a later date than originally thought, which was confirmed by the discovery of round-headed pins, the technology of which did not emerge until 1824. The man was likely a manual laborer and had healthy bones but degenerative changes in the cervical spine. Both had preserved internal organs, but the man had poor oral hygiene, resulting in most of his teeth falling out during his lifetime. The woman died at about 30 years old and had health problems including ureteral and gallstones and vascular calcification. The soap lady is now on display at the Mutter Museum, and the soap man is in storage at the Smithsonian Natural History Museum, where scientists are studying them to try to uncover the mysteries of their lives and deaths. Roman commemorative and battle masks. About 2,000 years ago, noble Roman families stuffed their wardrobes with wax masks of their male ancestors so that during funeral processions, actors could fill in the missing links in the genealogical chain. Scholars know about this strange custom from ancient sources, such as the Greek historian Polybius, although no such mask has survived. A deep reaction gave rise to the idea that the Romans could have had a very strong emotional attachment to these ancestral masks, which were cast during the life of these people. These masks, called imagens maiorum, pictures of ancestors, were made from beeswax, which may have been an expensive and rare material if it came from special, distant sources. Wax in its properties resembles a living body, and in a sense can serve as its replacement. A similar custom existed in Siberia among the Khanty and in Russia, where masks were put on at Maslenitsa, Kalendi, arranging processions. It is obvious that these are closely related customs. Among the finds of ancient Roman weapons, helmets with anthropomorphic masks found by archaeologists constitute a large group. Disputes about their appointment have been going on for a long time. This discussion was opened by the founder of Roman military archaeology, Ludwig Lindenschmidt, who considered them combat. The opposite point of view was held by his opponent in this matter, Otto Bendorf, who attributed them to part of the grave goods. The truth is most likely in the middle, but the religious component here is the main one. A masked warrior became like a god, with a face sparkling divine in the sun, and most likely this custom is connected with this. Kabayan mummies. We associate mummification primarily with ancient Egypt, but this practice existed in other cultures as well. One of the most unusual methods was used by the ancient Filipinos, who mummified their dead using smoke. Their method had nothing in common with the bandages and traditional embalming of the Egyptians, but it was no less effective. One of the largest burials of this type was discovered at the end of the 20th century in a cave in the province of Kabayan, which gave the name fire mummies. According to scientists, the age of the remains found is 700 years. The mummification process began during life. The dying person was given a very salty drink in order to dehydrate the body. After death, the body was placed in a sitting position and subjected to prolonged smoking. This process could last several months, after which the mummy was placed in a pine coffin and left in the cave. This method allowed the bodies to remain in amazingly good condition even after centuries. It is believed that this practice had not only a ritualistic but also a spiritual meaning. The souls of the dead remained part of their people. Tree guy. In Ireland, after a hurricane felled a 215-year-old beech tree, the skeleton of a young man who died in the Middle Ages was found in its roots. Surprisingly, in 1800, the tree was accidentally planted right on the grave, and its roots grew through the remains, preserving important details that allowed scientists to study the history of the young man. Analysis showed that he was 20 years old. Judging by his diet, the young man ate well and probably belonged to the wealthy part of society. However, the study also revealed a curvature of the spine, which may indicate hard physical work in childhood. The cause of death was violence. 2 notches were found on the ribs, indicating knife wounds. This case highlights the importance of chance archaeological discoveries that shed light on the personal stories of people who lived centuries ago.
Bas-relief of an eagle in the former capital of the Aztecs. For the first time, archaeologists discovered the eagle bas-relief in February 2020, exactly 3 years ago, and only now, having done a lot of research, they were able to determine the deep meaning of this image. The bas-relief is about 600 years old. It was found at the foot of the Templo Mayor Temple, which is located in the center of Tenochtitlan and now Mexico City. Now, archaeologists are sure that the eagle was carved during the reign of Motecuxum Ilhuicamin. About 70 similar sculptures were found in the Templo Mayor Temple, but this eagle is the largest of all. Its dimensions are 106 by 70 centimeters. It is not only its size that is striking, but also its significance indicated by its location. The golden eagle is the most important symbol in the Aztec culture, and its location in the center of the temple speaks of the importance of the bas-relief. The eagle was a sacred creature in the mind of the Aztecs, who was present at the birth of the sun, hence the blackened, scorched tips of the wings, and was a symbol of one of the elite military awards in the Aztec culture.
Vikings and UFOs. In 2022, an unusual Viking Age game token was found during archaeological excavations in Trondheim, Norway. This small artifact made of soapstone was discovered in an ancient well dating back to the 11th–12th centuries. Strange symbols resembling runes were engraved on its surface. After detailed analysis, scientists confirmed that this was indeed a runic inscription, possibly meaning battle brother or comrade in arms. But the researchers encountered another mystery. In addition to the obvious runes, there were thinner lines on the surface of the token, which upon closer examination formed a pattern resembling an unknown star map. Some alternative history enthusiasts have suggested that this pattern may be a stylized image of an object resembling a disc-shaped UFO. The connection between the Vikings and the observation of strange phenomena has long been discussed by historians and ufologists. The Scandinavian sagas repeatedly mention chariots of fire and heavenly ships plowing through the sky. Perhaps the ancient warriors encountered phenomena that today could be interpreted as contacts with extraterrestrial beings.
The golden head of a god and the 3 faces of death. In the ancient Egyptian city of Hierakonpolis, which long before the construction of the Great Pyramids was the country's religious center, researchers made a discovery that still evokes mystique. A golden falcon head was discovered directly beneath the floor of the main hall of the Temple of Horus. This is a masterpiece of the Old Kingdom, created more than 4,000 years ago. Horus was the lord of the sun and the main patron of royal power, so his images were always distinguished by their particular luxury. But this artifact is unique. The head is made of pure gold, and its eyes are inlaid with obsidian, a deep black volcanic glass. When you gaze upon this face, a frightening illusion of a living, piercing gaze is created. The obsidian reflects light so that it seems as if the deity is watching you from the depths of time. Scientists believe the head was hidden beneath the temple floor during a ritual renovation of the sanctuary or during a time of grave danger. Today, this golden falcon is housed in the Cairo Museum, remaining one of the few surviving images of gods made of precious metals from that era. It is a physical embodiment of the belief that the gods were literally present in their temples, overseeing order in the human world. But while the Egyptians sought to capture divine majesty, in ancient Mexico, art served to explain the harsh and inevitable reality of life. Archaeologists have discovered a unique Aztec terracotta work there, dating to approximately 1300 AD. It depicts 3 faces nested within one another, symbolizing the endless cycle of human existence. The design of this sculpture is striking in its philosophy. A toothless old man, depicted in 2 halves, seems to enclose the face of a young man at the very center, and the entire composition is framed by the frozen visage of the deceased. For the Aztecs, death was not the end of a journey or a tragedy. It was perceived as the next phase, necessary for the eternal renewal of the world.
Old age gives way to youth, and death stands guard over both processes, closing the circle. These two finds, a golden falcon from Egypt and 3 clay faces from Mexico, show how differently our ancestors viewed eternity. For some, it was unwavering gold and a divine gaze. For others, it was the endlessly changing masks of life and death. But both of these artifacts were created with the same purpose, to make us reflect on our place in this grand spectacle of history. Mysterious golden plates. During plumbing work near the village of Ringgalarik on the island of Java, workers accidentally discovered a stone chest. Inside were kept 22 small plates of pure gold. The stone vault, 15 by 13.5 by 6 centimeters, was completely intact. Inside were plates of gold, 18-karat purity. Each plate is engraved with an inscription in the ancient language of the inhabitants of Java. Scientists have established that the names of Lokapals are written on the plates, the divine guardians of the cardinal points in Hinduism and Tantric Buddhism. There are 8 such deities in Buddhism. On the island of Java, in addition, the patron of the center of everything was revered, and altogether the deities were called Devati Navasanga, 9 divine guardians. Lokapal statues can often be found in Indonesia. They were also depicted on the emblem of the Majapahit Empire, which existed from 1293 to 1520 AD. At that time, Lokapals were especially revered on the island of Java. The found gold plates, according to scientists, were created earlier than the Majapahit Empire. Thus, they are confirmation that the ancient Javanese worshipped the guardians of the cardinal directions over 1,000 years ago.
A necropolis with 95 crypts. Here is one of the most mysterious and unique places in the Caucasus, the Dargavs necropolis, located in North Ossetia. This medieval architectural complex, also known as the City of the Dead, has 95 stone crypts, many of which are in the shape of towers. The necropolis is located on the slope of a picturesque valley among majestic mountains, which gives it a special atmosphere of mystery and tranquility. Dargavs has a special significance for local culture and history. It is assumed that the crypts were built in the 16th, the 18th centuries and were used as a burial place. Each family built its own crypt, where they buried not only the bodies but also the belongings of the deceased, which is a rare custom for these places. Dargavs became a kind of family archive where household items and even bones have been preserved, which have helped historians better understand the life and customs of the ancient Ossetians. The necropolis is protected by UNESCO as a cultural heritage site, and it attracts tourists from all over the world. There are even stories among locals that anyone who visits the City of the Dead may not return. Today, the necropolis is an important cultural landmark and a reminder of the eternal connection between generations. Guardian statues. A joint Cambodian-Chinese team has been excavating the entrance gate to the royal palace, built in the 11th century for the kings of the Khmer Empire. The palace is part of the Angkor Thom complex, which includes the famous Angkor Wat Temple. During the excavations, archaeologists discovered 12 ancient guardian statues made of sandstone. The figures, created around the 11th century, were previously placed on top of the gate in 2 rows. Each statue is unique in size and detail and stands at least a meter tall. Photos show the statues as standing figures, some holding a staff in their right hand, surrounded by elaborate decorative elements around their heads. The condition of the statues varies, with some remaining almost intact and others cracked and worn by time. According to archaeologists, the Angkor Thom Palace was regularly modified during the 600 years of rule by various Khmer kings. The team plans to clean and restore the statues to return them to their original locations. The Pair of Anguish. Medieval interrogation rooms knew dozens of sophisticated instruments, but the Pair of Anguish remains a symbol of pure pain. On the outside is a smooth metal fruit with an elegant handle. Inside is a screw mechanism that spreads the petals. The executioner inserted the device into the victim's mouth, rectum, or vagina and slowly turned the screw. The steel flaps opened, tearing tissue and breaking the bones of the pelvis or jaw. The instrument did not kill instantly. Its purpose was to make someone talk or humiliate. For heretics and witches, the pair was often heated over coals so that the metal burned through from the inside. The wounds almost always ended in infection. Even if the person survived, gangrene did its job.
Today, these fruits can be found in the dark display cases of European museums. The master's marks and serial numbers show that production was put on stream, as if torture were the same kind of craft industry as the making of locks or kitchen utensils. Golden bead. A tiny golden bead discovered in Bulgaria is believed to be the oldest example of a worked gold object ever discovered. She is 6,500 years old. It is only 1/8 of an inch in diameter and was found at a site called Tel Unazi, where researchers also found hundreds of ceramic bird figurines that could have been used in a religious ceremony. The area was home to the Balkan civilization of the Copper Age, where metal production was developed and the people had extensive trading networks. Aliens appeared on Earth before humans. Researchers from Harvard and Montana Technological University have put forward a hypothesis that could radically change the idea of the place of aliens in the universe and on our planet. According to their theory, aliens arrived on Earth long before humans appeared, and instead of leaving it, decided to stay underground. This idea was called the crypto-Earth hypothesis. The authors suggest that aliens populated the Earth millions of years ago, possessing advanced technologies. With the advent of humanity, they decided to hide, perhaps so as not to interfere directly with the development of civilization. However, from time to time, they helped people with advice, technology, knowledge for which they were taken for gods. According to scientists, there is a lot of evidence for this. From mysterious artifacts and images of flying saucers on ancient engravings to structures that were impossible for their time. It is interesting that researchers consider not only the Earth's interior to be possible alien bases, but also the Moon, especially its dark side, Mars, and the depths of the oceans. The Alaska Triangle is also mentioned, where UFOs are regularly observed and mysterious disappearances of people are recorded. According to another version, aliens could have arrived on Earth on a planet ship, having left their dying star. This hypothesis explains how they overcame huge interstellar distances. They may have left their planet on the outskirts of the solar system, beyond the orbit of Pluto. Skeptics, of course, point to the lack of direct evidence, but the authors insist we still have little idea what is hidden underground, in sea trenches, and on the far side of the Moon. Perhaps intelligent life has long been nearby, it just does not want to be discovered. Whether to believe the Harvard researchers or not is up to everyone. I'm just telling you about the newest finds and interesting facts about our history, which hides a lot of interesting and incredible things from us. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Bye, everyone.